Yeah.
Ask me. Yes.
So good afternoon, everybody in Amsterdam. Good morning in Brazil, where Rodrigo will be presenting. Today we have a seminar. It's the 6th. I'm looking at Andre. Are we on the 7th seminar?
It's 8, I think.
Oh my goodness, sorry.
Yes,
we're on the
but I would have
8th
to check.
seminar on cultural economics, CEOs, and oh yes, because I think we wrote it wrong then here. Music, networks and technology in urban outskirts, technological impacts on rap production in the south of Sao Paulo. So we have Rodrigo Cavalcante Miquel. Oh dear. You'll have to correct me in a minute, presenting this. He's like, never mind. He will be presenting his paper. We will have some questions and response from Natalia, Mele, and then we will be able to continue the discussion via the chat. Just some general, many of you have already joined before, but just to be clear, we are recording the seminar. If you will not want to be recorded, please close your video. It will be nice if you still keep your name on your Zoom account so that we know who you are. If you have questions, please use the chat to write your questions. If it's a pressing question, we can maybe interrupt Rodrigo. He will have to tell us yes. And otherwise, we can keep the longer, more conceptual questions for afterwards in the discussion. So we have about an hour to talk about music in Brazil. So I give the word first to Rodrigo, who will share his screen and give a presentation. And afterwards, Natalia can respond. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Trilce, and thank you so much, Natalia, for the participation here. I would like to thank you for the invitation to talk about this specific paper. I think it's important to contextualize. Can you see my screen? Are you hearing me well? Is everything okay?
Yes, everything is perfect.
So this paper is a product from my thesis that I presented in 2018, my PhD thesis. That was realized under the supervision of Professor Ana Flávia Machado, that is here with us, and Natalia Sátiro, that she is in class today, but she couldn't be here, but she's a professor in the political science programs at the Federal University of Minas Gerais. I would like first to apologize in advance for my English and the possible mistakes that I'm going to commit. If I'm talking too fast or too slow, you can always interrupt me and we think in a better way, okay? So I will start my presentation. Let me just, it's not, okay, here. I'd like to first say about the motivation that gave us for this work. We'll start reading and to see a lot of works, books, and papers that describes the relation between technologies and creative industries, and specifically technology and music production, and how the music production are guided by technologies and affected by technologies in the history. So when you think about gramophone and vinyl and CDs and digitalization, etc. So there were a lot of works and papers that describe the relations about technology and music, and specifically in the currently situation about the information and communication technologies and the music production. So how the digitalization of music and the internet has changed the way that music is produced, music is being consumed worldwide. So how the peer-to-peer technology, the streaming, YouTube and broadcasting changed the market structure and etc. So these works and these theories really are really interesting because some authors really describe how it changes the whole economic system of music production nowadays. But we are looking for these works and these discussions, and we asked ourselves, so this seems, of course, to be true because we see data, we see how the worlds of music production and consumption works nowadays. But we asked ourselves, so these theories, it's validated for different territories, for different economies, for different countries. So when I say that the ICTs reduce the production costs and enable bigger participation of amateurs and different people in the music sector, does this really applies for all territories? So this was the motivation for these works, okay? And our main objective, what we try to talk about in this paper and in the thesis, is to verify whether the technological changes provided by the ICTs in the music production have caused a greater participation and in some way a different dynamism in the market production when we are looking to the agents located in urban peripheries, okay? So we picked up a case study for a south of São Paulo periphery in Brazil that I am going to present the territory further, okay? So we are trying to see if this specific relation of ICTs and music production, if these theories applied for this territory that we are calling urban peripheries. And a second goal, a second objective for our work is if this theory, if this relation of ICTs and music production really happens in this territory, how it affects and how it changes the organization of music production, how this music production is being produced, and how the agents are being organized and related to each other in order to produce it music. Okay, so I divided this presentation in 4 topics. In the first part, I'm going briefly talking about some literature review and specific concepts that we need to discuss for the paper and for the thesis. In the second part, I'm going to present the territory, the Grajaú in São Paulo, and talking about briefly about our methodological aspects of the networks and how we deal with the interview and collecting the data. In the third sector, I'll present the results, and for the last, some final considerations and conclusions, okay? So at first, in our literature review, I need to talk to you of how we saw and how we see the creative economy and the creative industries for the construction of this work and this discussion, okay? So when we are talking about creative industries, and creative economy, and of course, music production, we are not having a specific look and we are not using a traditional economic approach with microeconomic fundamentals and etc. to deal with the creative industries, okay? We search for some authors and some works that treat the creative economy in an evolutionary perspective, since we are talking about technologies and the ICTs and etc. So we used the evolutionary approach with the neo-Schumpeterian approach and etc. And we also used some concepts and some ideas of the complexity theory. So we are looking to the creative industries and the creative economy as open systems, okay? This is a concept for the complexity theory. So we see the creative industries as a bunch of relations that are created by multiple agents. So there are multiple agents that related to each other in order to produce service, to produce creative goods. And these relations are not linear, are not static, are dynamic. We cannot preview the behavior of these agents and etc. So we found in the works of Communal and Potts, specifically for the creative economy literature, and we use the work of Ben Hocker to bring the concepts and the contribution of the complexity theory to deal with the creative economy. So we see the creative economy and the music production as open systems, and we use the view of networks of production and networks of consumption. When we are talking about music networks production, we are using the background of the works of Leishan, that he construct a work where he describes how this music production is related in relations between agents, pre, post, and music production, and etc. So we are far from a mainstream view of economics. Okay, in the second main group of literature review that we did is to understand the relation between the ICTs and the music production and the consequence on the music sector. So we used basically the work of Wikström and Dolata, that because they described how the ICTs, the digitalization of music, has generated consequences for the market, for production, and etc. So Wikström, he tells us that when you have the digitalization of music and the advent of internet and etc., you have a lower production costs, and you have the possibility of smaller recording studios and smaller players to enter in the market. So you have changes in competition strategies and competition structures. You have low barrier in the market, and etc. So this is how we are looking to the creative economy, and this is basically the relation that we are trying to see in the territory. So when we look to the works of Wikström and Dolata, we asked ourselves, but does this apply for different territories? This relation of the ICTs and these consequences applies for different territories. So this is what we are trying to answer here, okay? So where are we going to answer these questions? We took the city of São Paulo in Brazil. That is the largest city, the biggest city in Latin America, and the largest city in Brazil. It's a city with more than 12 million inhabitants. And here I provided some graphics that shows how the population moved to the center of São Paulo to the peripheries. You know, so the first map of São Paulo is the population distribution in 1950. And the last one is the same variable in 2010. That is the last census that we have. So you see how the population spread to peripheries in the city of São Paulo. And when you look to the income per capita in 2010, you see that the income stays in the center of São Paulo, and the peripheries has lower levels of incomes, and you see an equal distribution of income, and etc. So we are looking to this territory in the red circle. This is the district of Grajaú. There is a specific territory in São Paulo that is a periphery, and it has almost 500,000 inhabitants just in this specific space. Okay. Another consideration that I need to make about the territory is how the cultural offer in the territory is low. So this map shows the relation between inhabitants and cultural equipment. So the darker the district, the neighborhood is, the lower is the cultural offer by traditional ways and cultural equipment and etc. And I bring to you some photos that shows how is the Grajaú. You see that there is an agglomeration of houses, and the houses that are constructed by the population, the inhabitants, and etc. There is a lake in the territory that divides two different neighborhoods and so on. And another thing that it's important for us to know, it's that when you walk through the streets of Grajaú, you see a lot of graffiti, you see some attitudes for the population in creating some movies, shows in the space, in the open spaces, and etc. And you see how the hip hop culture, it's present in the territory. You see the graffitis, and you see a lot of young people doing skates and rhyme battles and etc. So it's a territory that it's really important for rap production in Brazil. You have famous rappers that came from Grajaú that now it's known in the whole country, in different countries and etc. And one specific picture that I would like to tell to you guys is this one in the right left. You see cultural equipment. This is the cultural center of Grajaú. That's cultural equipment constructed by the public power, the city hall in São Paulo, and they invited the population to decorate and to paint the cultural center. And they all, of course, they painted a rapper, and you see skate, graffitis, and etc. And this big guy with the hood and the man like the hand like this, it's an important rapper for the territory, for the population that I interviewed in our work. So you see, that is a territory that has lack of public policies with urbanization and sanitization and etc. But you see how people in this territory try to create its own cultural identity with rap music and hip hop culture. Of course, rap music is not the only cultural vertent in this territory. You have presence of samba and presence of funk music, Brazilian funk music too. Okay, so we have our theory, we have our territory, and how we are going to find our answers, how we act in our methodology in the territory. So we use social network analysis for to try to track and to understand the relations that the artists and the rappers in this territory create between them. Okay, so we collected primary data with rappers and producers and DJs and several people that are involved with rap production in the territory. Okay, so we didn't have a population, so we did not have a predefined sample, so we used snowball sampling for our that data collect. And when we were trying to understand the relations created by the interviewers, we were concerned in create three different networks, three different spaces of relations that these agents created between them. So there is one general network that shows all the relations that are created by the interviewers. And we separated this general network in two subsets of relation. That one is monetary network, that involves only relations that that is based on money exchange. So if a rapper record an album with a producer in the local and this relation is paid, it enters in the monetary network. So we saw a bunch and several relations that didn't involve payments and money exchange, that it was relations for sympathy and for art's sake and etc. So we call that relation collaborative network. Okay, so now we are going to have a overview in our sample. We conducted the interview in different periods in 2016 and 17. The average age of the interview was 30 years old, and all the interviewers were men. And this was not a choice made by us, but that's how the snowball sampling just lead us, you know, that it shows how the rap production in Brazil, it's men determinated, and it's concentrated on men and etc. The majority of the sample declare themselves as blau and black when you're talking about race, and only 12% are white people. 74% have completed high school degree, and only 16% some undergraduate studies. And more than half of the sample has been in the rap scene for more than 10 years. Another information that is important to elucidate here is that the majority of the interviews, they have the rap production as a second job. You know, the most of the interviews that have regular jobs, and only 25% of these jobs are related to creative industries like managing art galleries or tattoo shops or something like that. Okay, and here I just have some quotes that I'm not going to read. I'm just going to show some highlights that the interviewer shows how the technology enables some popularization and how it is benefit for in the territory. Okay, so the first quote is about a rap producer, and he tells a story of how he created his own home studio and how it's he started when he was 15 years old with really bad quality devices and etc. But he was it's important for us to know how he learned to use softwares and programs on YouTube, and how this democratization of knowledge that found in internet was able for him to create a better studio, home studio in his house. Okay, and another thing that shows in the interviews is how these artists and these producers in this territory sees the different platforms. Okay, so when we are talking about Deezer, Spotify, and the streaming platforms, they see these platforms as a business card. You know, they put their songs and their music in these platforms because they have to do. Because if someone that is not from Grajaú, is not from the territory, wants to know the work, it can be found. So one specific interview, he told me that the people that lives in Grajaú does not use this platform, so the rappers and the producers prefer to use YouTube as a main device and platform for disseminating the work. Okay, and another quotes, just one guy, this was a brilliant guy that I interviewed, and he told of how they need to think in different platforms and different mechanisms to show their work, because he says that Spotify and streaming platform has this problem. The people cannot afford and is not ubiquitous in the territory. On television, they feel ridiculized and they do not feel that they're the space. The internet is very spread and you cannot hold the control of that information. And he sees the radio as a good platform to show the music that are producing in the territory. But in the same way, he says that in Brazil, for you to put your music playing in the radio, you need to pay to the radio. That's what he calls jabá. It's a slang in Brazil for this kind of mechanisms. Okay, so now we are going to have a look in the networks that were created by the interviewer. So that's an overview of the general networks, and the dots that are in red are represent musicians. Okay, the dots that are in green are workers from the production and recording activities. In blue, graphic individuals like filmmakers and graphic designers and etc. In yellow, other functions that we just aggregated. Okay, the circles are from inhabitants in the territory in Grajaú. The square shapes are from those people who lives in other neighborhoods in São Paulo, but still in the city of São Paulo. The triangles is from other cities in other states in Brazil. And the diamond shapes, the losanges, is location undefined because the interviewer do not remember where this artist or this person is located. Okay, so when we are talking about the general network, we are talking about 230 agents, you know. Half of this are living in Grajaú. They are inhabitants of Grajaú, 18% in São Paulo. And 38% are agents that develops production and recording jobs, and 22% of rappers and musicians, okay? The average distance between these agents, which means for one agent, reach any other agent in the network, he needs to goes to in media 4.3 contacts. So it's not very it's not a very close network because you need to step for more than 4 people, for more than 4 persons to reach each people in the network. Okay, so the agent with the most the highest degree of intermediation, and this statistic intermediation, it shows how one single person can connect different agents in this network. So the higher the degree of intermediation is from one person, it means that this person has a control of this network because he can reach the other agents with more facility and more easily. So it's a measure for the power and the control of the network. So when we are talking about the general relations, the agents with the most, with the higher degree of intermediation is one producer. It's one brilliant producer in the territory. He also has work as rapper and musician, but he claimed himself as a producer, okay? And the second agent is a single solo. So you see in the general network, you have one producer and one rapper that holds the control of this network with the highest degree of intermediation. Okay, so when we just analyze the monetary relations, the relations that are paid that involve money exchange, we see that the network, of course, is smaller. You know, we are talking about 106 agents, and 57% is from Grajaú. So you see how the money that is involved in the local production tends to at least more than 50% stay in inhabitants in Grajaú. And one curiosity is that in the monetary network, the presence of rappers and musicians are really slow. It's only 5% of the agents that involves money exchange and payments are rappers and musicians. Okay, the average distance is slow, but it's just because the network is slow. And the most representative agent is the same that are in the general network. The second one is a producer and a DJ, and the fourth and fifth are also producers. So the main difference between the general network and the monetary network is how the producers functions, the producer and recording jobs, they hold the control for the money exchange and the monetary relations in the music production in the territory. In the other hand, when we are looking only for the collaborative relations and the collaborative network, we see a major participation of rappers and musicians for 30%. Still, production and recording jobs are the most prominent in the network, but when you compare collaborative and monetary network, you see a big difference when you are talking about the presence of rappers and musicians. Okay, the agents with the highest degree of intermediation is a rapper, is not a producer anymore, but the second one is the same producer that are the most important in general and in the monetary network. Okay, so some final considerations that I need to make here. I think you are hearing the dogs from the neighbors. I'm sorry for that. When we looked to the networks and to the interviews and to other data that we collected during the interview, we can make signalization that the ICTs have actually brought a new dynamic to the sector, and specifically in the territory, because you see how the agents and the musicians and the producers, how they create home studios and how they create a new dynamic of relations and etc., and how the internet facilitated the access to softwares and tutorials, and how this informal education is important in the territory. Okay, but we need to accept this hypothesis, let me say like this, with a caution, you know, because one thing is to say that ICTs has brought new dynamic and people are able to record and to produce music more easily, but this not means that they are obtaining incomes and gains and have more freedom to work only as a artist and a rapper in the territory, because several interviews told us that yes, it's easier to produce music right now. We have access to all the production chains in the territory, but still we cannot make money from our art, from our music. So we have our jobs and the music is still our second job. So in this aspect, in this sense, the ICTs has not generate consequences and impacts in this thing. So it seems that the ICTs, the impacts of ICTs is that they generate a new dynamic and modified the way of production. The production realized in the territory valued some community ties and collaborative ties, and people work and do art for art and not for money and etc. So what we can make for some conclusions is just what I told, that we can see that the ICTs really changed the music production, specific in this urban periphery. So we goes in the line with the work of Wikström and the work of Leischen, and we see that the methodology, it's a good methodology for us to understand this dynamic and how this new way of producing music it's seen in the territory. But at the same time, we cannot assume that these consequences generate impacts on the income generation, in the modification of life, and etc. So I think it's this. I don't know if it was very short or very long. I tend to be very long in my presentation, so if it was, I apologize for that. So I think now we can discuss a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Rodrigo. And this is actually just fine. You presented really well. I would like now to give the word then to Natalia Melle from the Western Norway University of Applied Sciences, the Mond Center for Innovation and Regional Development. Natalia.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Rodrigo, for a very good presentation. And it was a really nice article to read, very exciting findings. And I really enjoyed to use the social network analysis, which is quite a new approach in this field. I have some few comments and some few questions. I think the case itself was extremely exciting. And I just wanted to expand a bit the discussion around the territory here and the regional differences. So why do we think this particular case and urban outskirts in general can be very interesting in regard to ICTS research?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because when we were talking about where we are going to test this theory, I say the first effort was going to make a comparative study in different outskirts in Brazil. So we are trying to go up north, south, southwest, and etc. But I don't know if it was God or if it was something that just told me, you are not able to do something like that. You don't have time, you don't have money, and etc. So we need to pick one specific territory. And we selected this territory based on some parameters. The first one is that we were looking for popular and not a mainstream rhythm and not a mainstream way of producing music. So we were deciding between rap music, between funk, Brazilian funk, and another rhythm in Brazil that is called Tecnobrega, that is from the north of state. I think you all should listen because it's incredible. But we choose this specific territory because it was more logistic in the ways that we to act in this territory. It was a territory that shows really discrepancies or differences between rich and poor in the city, and you can see clearly how the periphery and the center of the city it's super unequal, and how is the importance of the rap production in this territory for the rap production in Brazil. So historically, it's really important for the rap scene in Brazil. Many rappers came from this territory. So I think it was that the choice for this territory, it was this. And we also saw how different rappers in this territory was using YouTube and was using Spotify. And so we just analyzed, oh, okay, so they are trying to use these new technologies. So they are target for ICTs and etc. So that's how we chose this specific territory.
Yes, very good. And do you expect that the results, the findings would be completely different for a different territory? For example, if you would go for the rich central territory in São Paulo?
Yeah, I think it would be, I think we can see some, we're going to see some differences, I think if you go to the center of São Paulo, for example, you will not find this agglomeration of relations in a specific territory, because if you go to the center or to other neighborhoods close to the center of São Paulo, one person is able to live here and to record in a different zone or to travel to a different city to make this process and etc. So what we were trying to see is how autonomous the territory is for producing the whole production chain to music production. So since the songwriting, the recording, the distribution, and you have incredible artists that make video clips and graphic art. So they have a whole line for production for a whole city. I don't think we are going to see that in the center, and probably the monetary network will be much bigger than the collaborative network in the center.
So it's kind of unique ecosystem.
Yeah, because they create a cultural identity, they create a familiar relation with neighbors and etc. So the hip hop family, it's a really strong concept for those artists and for those producers. So they see each other as brothers, and it doesn't matter if you don't have the money to pay me right now, because I know when you have, you're going to pay me, so that's what a lot of interviewers just told us. I don't think you see this kind of relations when you go to the center of the cities, because the relations are not constructed like that, you know. So there's a community sense in this population, you know.
Do you think it's also kind of unique for particular hip hop rap culture? If you would study funk music, would you find the same, or it's also genre dependent?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I can answer this question, but funk. We have some studies in Brazil that show something like that, and in Tecnobrega in the north of state, we have some works that say something like that too. And one thing that is really interesting in the Tecnobrega situation here is that they use the piracy in their own benefits, you know. So when an artist record a music and another artist in the neighborhood just piracy the CDs and etc., and sells in the informal vans and etc., the artists think that this is nice because I'm being known and etc. So the piracy, it's embodied in the music distribution in the Northeast. So I think we have specific similarities when we are talking about different rhythms, because the rhythms are also territorialized here in Brazil. You know, you have funk in one region, samba in another region, and etc. So I think we're going to see some similarities and some differences.
Yeah, very interesting case. And what I also was reading in your article is that most of the income so far, it comes from live concerts. That's correct?
Yes, yes.
So they actually don't use a lot of digital technology for income generation.
Yes, yes.
Have you found
they try
any?
to?
Yeah.
They try to use. You know that there was one interview with that. He told me that he was talking with a friend that he has, and this friend just told him, I just played your album several times, so probably you're going to receive some cents of this player. And the rapper just told me, how am I going to receive this? You know, so they didn't even know how and when and which form they receive from Spotify, from YouTube, and etc. So they are not completely full with information of how these technologies can generate incomes and etc. So because it's not their culture, you know. They make money with presentations, they make money selling CDs in the streets and etc. So this is not a fact in this territory.
And as we have this project on crowdfunding, I just have to ask you, have you had any indications of use of crowdfunding in any form to fund the project?
In this specific territory?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I need to make more research to answer you this.
No.
We can talk later.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
And as a lot of the income comes from live performances, I'm just curious as well, what has happened now during the COVID-19 crisis? So did they use digital technologies to a larger degree now because of all the other restrictions and the loss of some of the live concert incomes? Did it make any difference?
I would love to know this information, because I really don't, because I presented this work in 2018, so we didn't even imagine the pandemic situation, and I really do not know how they are dealing with this situation right now. Maybe it's a future agenda for research. You gave me an interesting idea.
Yeah, kind of follow up, yeah.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, I think in many European countries, at least, artists really used a lot of the digital ways to perform digitally, to sell tickets in digital way and so on. So they kind of I would expect something like that to some degree maybe happens as well. But
I really don't think this is happening in this specific territory. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think they have the ways to sell this to the population, because the main audience for these artists are local, you know,
Yes.
are people from the neighborhood, and these people do not have great incomes and etc. So when you ask for this person to pay to watch a show online, probably it will not be a good idea.
No. So what do you actually experience as the main consequence of the ICTS in this area? Is it about network building, collaboration, or is it more about just the practical issue of production?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because but several interviewers, they told me that this type of relations always exist in the territory. You know, the rap music and the rap family, it's based on relations and etc. So I think that what changed, it's now they can do several steps of music production, you know, in the territory, because in the past they need to collect money from friends and families and go to record the music in the center of the city, and it was really expensive, so they record 1-2 music per time, and that's it. And I think the most impact of the ICTs is that they generate the local network, you know, so they generate the local network, because you have all the production process steps now locally, you know. It's really interesting to understand how the collaborative ties and the monetary ties differs between jobs and between rappers and producers and etc. But I don't think this is a specific new consequence from the ICTs.
So it's not this, but more like what you say.
Natalia, we have a couple of questions from the audience.
Oh yeah, of course. So I think I almost asked all that I was wondering about. I just one maybe short question. As you can see, this network is rather tight. So it's for some of the monitoring and collaborative networks, it's just 2 individuals in between. So what are the main implications of this kind of tight network?
I don't think I fully understand, because just I think, I don't know if it's my connection, but it was, can you repeat the question? Because I think my internet just cut it.
So the average distance between the individuals is quite short in monitoring and collaborative networks, just 2 individuals in between.
Yeah.
So what are the implications?
Yeah, I think we need to understand this average distance, because when you have a general network, you have more than 200 agents there, you know. So consequently, the average distance is going to be bigger, you know. And when you disaggregate it and construct 2 smaller networks, the average distance tends to be smaller, you know, which means that when we were talking just about monetary relations, these people tend to know better each other and to construct better neighborhood relations, and this also happens in the collaborative network. So when you have decreasing in the number of the agents, naturally the average distance is going to be smaller.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very interesting studies, and I'm looking forward to maybe a follow-up in the COVID time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalia, for your questions. So we have a couple of questions on the chat. I think you partially answered one. Luis Cesar Herrero asked, I wonder if these tendencies are confirmed just in modern music or as well as traditional music. What happens with bossa nova, salsa, or other Brazilian type of music? and do they need this technology to spread? But you already alluded to that with Natalia's question. And then Andres Rakar has another question. Is intermediation a type of centrality measure? And if so,
Yes.
which? And he has also a possible interesting reference from sociologist Nick Cosley. You can look in the chat. Perhaps you would like to respond to this?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the references. I'm definitely going to look at. The intermediation is a centrality measure, is the betweenness centrality. You know, I just call it intermediation because I think it's a clearer word for people that are not familiar with social network analysis. So it's the degree of betweenness.
Could it maybe be just shortly add, and then shortly the others, basically possibly a more formal analysis of the networks could also bring some benefit. I was also thinking about temporal networks, but in your case, probably you get the interviews, you have only one point in time, but observing this in time sense could be possibly very interesting. And also you feature different node types, I think of even 2 different category types. Maybe this could even provide some ground for an additional structures in the network analysis, affiliation, or any other.
Yeah,
which can bring some additional information, maybe. And also, just shortly, possibly even different centrality measures. You use this intermediation and then probably calculate the distances, but maybe also different degree or closeness or any other measures.
Yeah. I just used the intermediation, the betweenness and the average distance because it was the statistics that were more significant for this specific job, you know, for this specific work. We calculated the other centrality measures, and there is a show in the completely thesis, but for the paper we just choose to analyze the more significant ones. And it would be awesome to make a time series with this relation. That's going to be wonderful. I don't think if you have the project for doing this, but maybe it's an interesting proposal.
Great, thank you, Andre. Aldo has a question.
All right. Okay. First of all, Rodrigo, congratulations for your presentation and your study. Very, very interesting and very relevant study. Actually, this study can be replicated, of course, in Rio de Janeiro or Brega or any other genres, and abroad as well. So if you're thinking about Africa, for instance, can be completely replicated, and then you can have interesting comparison studies. So congratulations for your study. I have some 2 observations that I'd like to make. Piracy is interesting, and say, oh yeah, if you pirate my album, that's fantastic. Yeah, to a certain extent. I doubt that Mano Brown would be happy if you're gonna pirate his because he's already or Criollo because they are already established artists. So yes, if you are nobody, but if you're passing a certain threshold, maybe that's gonna be complicated. Another point is making money is related to distribution, totally. Okay, and I must confess that I'm outdated of the situation in Brazil, but in the past there were some community because the kind of music that you're talking is community based, so community incentivized, and in the past, some years ago, there was community radios or pirate radios, okay, and that was part of the network for you to create. And those radios, and that links to my question, those radios, they act as gatekeepers. And you're not mentioning gatekeepers in your presentation, in your 40 minutes presentation, so it was very deep. So you're not mentioning that. And gatekeeper can be co-producer, can be selector, but can be a tastemaker, or someone who's going to say, okay, this is good, this is bad, because quality, you're also not mentioning quality of art production. My question, because you're very focused on network, are the networks replacing the gatekeepers themselves?
Well, let me just talk about the piracy observation. When I was talking about piracy, I was not so focused on the rap production. I was just giving an example for the Tecnobrega in the north of Pará. But I think your observation is really clear. It's interesting until a certain point. That's for sure. That's for sure. For our territories, that's do not have difference between the territories. About the gatekeepers. Well, I didn't mention the radios and I didn't mention the gatekeepers because I was attempt to what the interviewers just told me. You know, it was something like more observational study and something like that. And they didn't mention community radios in our pre-test and etc. So we decided not to include this type of agents in our networks unless it appeared in the description and etc. for the interviews, which didn't happen. So maybe it's a topic for future researchers. I think it's a super interesting participation. We know that the community radios, I don't think they are in the same patamar that we have in the past. I think we have a decrease in the number of community radios in Brazil. But I need to make sure of this information that I don't know. Yes.
Yeah, but the community centers, for instance, you show and you highlighted very strongly the role of the community center and the live concerts. But someone select who is going to perform there because restrictions and resources are limited anywhere, anyhow. So there's no exchange for that. So the role of the gatekeeper is going to be super important for your analysis. Maybe of course, they are not using that term, but though that bloody guy who selected that son of a bitch who didn't select me in that particular concert or festival or whatever.
Yeah, one thing that works as a similar gatekeeper in the territory is the battle rhymes. You know, so when the rappers encounter to each other in public spaces and they do the rhyme battles and the rap battles, you start to gain a status with the community and etc. So maybe and probably this is going to be the new gatekeeper, or not new because rhyme battles always happen in
the organizer is the gatekeeper.
Yes. Is exactly. So probably one potential gatekeeper is the battle rhymes and the organizers, and they keep for the battle rhymes in the territory. That's a really interesting topic. Thank you for your consideration.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aldo, for this point. And I see Anna has responded to Luis again on the use of technology, but perhaps you want to say another comment on that last comment, Rodrigo, on the use of these technologies. So Luis asked if the use of these technologies was for other genres could have a similar effect.
Yeah. The thing that we chose the rap production because it's a production based on poor territories and in communities, territories that we once called favelas. We do not use these terms anymore. We called communities and etc. And when we are talking about bossa nova, it's a rhythm that it's completely set for the bourgeois and for different tourists and etc. So they don't need to think about how they're going to distribute their music, because they are already set in having economic incomes positive. So I don't think bossa nova it's really being so produced to everyone in Brazil, but I think we can call, there's a rhythm called MPB and samba that it's similar to that. And Ana Flávia just point out that salsa is not a Brazilian rhythm, it's a Caribbean.
And bossa nova is dead.
Yeah.
Bossa nova is completely dead. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The
You know,
future is
Anita
bad.
was trying to revive all the bossa nova in the new video clip.
It's so
Gosh, well,
boring.
thank you very much for this. Oh, is Andre? Do you have a question?
Just just
Yes.
one remark. Coming to my mind when listening to the questions and replies, you also study incomes and monetary and so on issues. Maybe it could also be interesting to explore this in terms of the distribution, in terms of core, periphery, and similar network models. What would this maybe also tell? Because networks are also used to study inequality and so on. Just maybe.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I like it because I have several ideas for a postdoc project, because you gave me so many ideas. I think I just finished this meeting and start to write my postdoctoral project.
Gosh, well, thank you. Thank you all for your questions. And looking at the time, I would like to give Natalia the last word, perhaps to do a last question or comment to Rodrigo.
Yes, thank you again. I think just the last final maybe comment or question. What do you think will be the future development of the ICTs in this particular case? Will it be just continuing the same, or it will extend to some other directions like crowdfunding, for example?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they are still trying to better understand the new technologies, you know, but at the same time, I think they are trying to create different ways of acting and new ways of generating incomes and etc. I think probably the crowdfunding policies and the crowdfunding projects can be one specific concept and aspect to develop in the territory, you know. So maybe Alice, you're hearing us. maybe you can do something about that. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, if I may jump here as well, just because I think, yeah, Natalia know about my topic, of course, and one of my focus is to see about the value of co-creation in using crowdfunding. And I do think that we have a lot of potentiality to explore this co-creation and co-production projects in the periphery in Brazil, of course. So yeah, maybe some projects can come out of this here.
Great, well, thank you. And you actually, thank you for this, Alice, because you make a beautiful bridge to just make a comment that in the Economist Talk, our blog, we just published an article by Victoria Tecamesto, in which she actually looks at how cultural participation could include as well this giving, and in terms of money or in terms of time or other forms of continuing with the cultural sector. So, but for next time, we have a different topic. Presenters Chiara Delle Nogare and Monica Mursin Kupis, will be presenting on another article they published in the Journal of Cultural Economics. Do museums foster innovation through engagement with the cultural and creative industries? And they propose a way to measure this and how to look at this with, we will have as discussant Enrico Bertaccini. And so I would like to invite you all to tune in next time. But I think if I remember correctly, yes, so their seminar will be exactly at the same time as we had today. So in over 2 weeks. Yes.
Trilce, wouldn't it be possible for us to postpone half an hour this seminar? Do you think it's possible?
Because of Erasmus seminar?
And also for who is in Americas, it's gonna be half an hour later for them, but I don't know if people in Far East, of course.
We can always ask. Sometimes our schedule is dependent on the speakers, and so I will check. But that's a good point. So I will check if we can move to 16:30 time of Central Europe.
Thank you very much.
Point. And I think that might be our last seminar. I'm looking at Andre. That might be our last seminar for the summer. But please, again, I would like to invite you to use these platforms to share your work and to, explore ideas and to contribute to this community of cultural economy. So just like this cultural economics online seminar, also the blog and the conference that's coming up in July. So I thank you all for your participation. Andre.
May I just shortly interrupt for one additional thing? Another possibility that this seminar brings is also smaller symposia, and in the fall, we're already planning some on contingent valuation, as on the topic of the previous seminar, and some others, I think, on festivals and gathering data in culture, just shortly.
Yeah, and also another thing, since we're already doing announcements, this seminar has the flexibility to serve you. And so if you would like to discuss more methodological things and do, instead of 1 hour, a little bit longer to really get into looking at the data and playing with it, you're welcome to propose this. And so again, this platform is for the community, so please feel free to share. So thank you very much all for Luis. Good to see you.
Hi. Congratulations, Rodrigo. Very interesting. I'm sorry for confusing about the samba and salsa.
That's okay.
I would like to dance both.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. And shortly, we will have this recording on the YouTube channel of CEOs on the Cultural Economics online seminar. So thank you again and have a good afternoon. Have a good day and see you next time.
Thanks.
Good afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.